That's good. So, welcome to the January 14th virtual drivers meeting for the state of Illinois. I'm your head referee, Kat. Online, we also have Corey, who will be helping moderate this session, as well as Jonathan Weiland and Greg Godsell, who are partner and operations director for First FTC in Illinois. So that's hopefully our cadre of officials here on the call. Anybody else can chime in as needed. We're going to ask everybody that they stay on mute during this call unless they are asking a question. You can raise your hand, that would be helpful, or you can ask questions in the chat. A quick reminder, this is a carryover from the previous session, which is why we're starting about 5 minutes late. Apologize for that. But the judging session, we had a quick reminder that the Dean's List submissions are due tomorrow, which is the 15th of January. So going to go quickly through my general reminders. This is my interpretation as of today, January 14th, if you're watching this recording at a later date. Any information that comes out after today may overrule something I tell you today. I'm going to do my best to tell you the best interpretation of the rules as they are right now. You can always get an official ruling on the game forums, which we'll drop a link in the chat in a moment when the team numbers die down a little bit. Thank you for putting your team numbers in the chat. Also, I'm a human being. The GDC is comprised of human beings, so if we make mistakes, it happens sometimes. We're also all figuring out how to do the remote thing this year, so please keep that in mind. And we'll be talking mostly about the remote game set of rules per usual. So first of all, thanks everybody who participated in Meets 1 and 2, or Meet 1 or Meet 2. I think we saw some pretty good participation, and that was quite exciting to see. And we did see some improvements in the teams that participated in both Meet 1 and Meet 2. So we hope everyone is able to participate in a meet at some point this year, as well as an elite tournament. I'm also gonna say thanks to everyone who submitted a match video. And Corey did a great job compiling everything for the recap video. If you haven't checked that out, please find an opportunity to do that. We're really excited to see the progress of all the teams that submitted some video of their competitions, their matches. So also, I was able to, again, provide feedback to every team that submitted video of some of their matches. My #1 priority is to answer virtual question box questions. And secondly, I will try and provide feedback to those teams that do submit their match video. So if that's something that interests you, please keep that in mind. Please submit match video or submit a question to the question box. I think my turnaround time is definitely within 24 hours per question right now. So I do try and get back to you quickly and thoroughly. I think some people who have gotten a response from me are on here, and they can probably attest to the fact that I hope those are thorough responses. So, some reminders, and Corey, if you want to drop some of the recap videos in the box, as well as I see the question box form in there. Awesome, thank you. And the video submission form's also on there. We appreciate your match videos. You do not have to record your matches, but they definitely are fun to watch. Everyone wants to know what everyone else is doing, and we like seeing your progress. So over to Corey.
Thanks, Kat. I'm just kind of scrolling through a little bit here. I have not seen any questions roll in. If you do have any questions for Kat, if you put them in the chat, I'm kind of listing them out and making sure we get to them one at a time so you don't feel like you have to wait. You'll be able to just get your question out. I'll hang on to it, and then I'll serve it up when we do have space to go through it. If you haven't yet seen your team number, roll through the chat. If you could make sure it is there just so we can document who has been here. Thank you for everybody who has already done so. So if you haven't done that, please make sure you drop that name, your team number on in. And if you have any questions come up, I will start taking note of those. And once Kat gets through her updates, I'll roll through those questions.
Sure. Jonathan, did you have any updates you wanted to add before I get into the rules and gameplay and stuff?
No, but the Dean's List event is February 20th. So a lot of people have been asking about that.
Okay, we appreciate that. Also, I'll tackle this one in the chat real fast because it's also maybe a little bit more of a Jonathan question. How many leagues are there in Illinois?
There's only one league this year.
Okay, and the league tournaments?
February 27th for Western, Central, and Southern Illinois. March 6th for Chicago and Northern Illinois.
Okay, appreciate
There'll be 2 events on March 6th.
Okay, so a total of 3 league tournaments that will feed into the state event.
Approximately 30 teams per event.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and go through some reminders, and then again, if you guys have any questions, feel free to drop those in the chat. We'll get to them after my general reminders. First of all, no manual updates this time. Yay! They did not update the manuals prior to this meet yet. So I'm not aware of any that are coming. So that's good, is the rules are the same as they were for the last meet. Again, there's national meetings regarding gameplay, other topics, including some technical troubleshooting. If you are not on the national FTC email blasts, you should sign up for those. There are some helpful webinars that they're holding on a national basis if that is something that interests you. Additionally, there's also some optional quizzes out there. There's one for gameplay and there's one for scoring. They're both pretty short, but if you want to do a quick test of your own knowledge, that is a good place to start. Reminders based on some stuff I saw in Meet 2. Actually, most of the teams were really good about their safety, so we appreciate that. The general reminders are make sure you're wearing safety glasses, make sure you're wearing closed-toed and closed-heeled shoes, and then make sure you guys are doing what's appropriate for COVID in your region of Illinois and based on the restrictions and rules of your school, organization, and wherever you're playing your meets. And as a reminder, we do, I think, still have some COVID grants in Illinois if you would like to buy some cleaning products or other COVID-related items. I believe Illinois still has funds for those. Contact Jonathan. And make sure your field meets the remote field requirements. Again, Meet 2 was greatly improved over Meet 1, so that was great to see. A lot of the fields look pretty good. I tried to give you tips in your feedback if something did not look good to me, so please make sure you take a look at that and make any corrections that are reasonable for you to make. So, big thing is make sure you guys have a human player. Even if you're not playing with the rings at all, make sure you have a human player, make sure they return rings to the field. It's required. Otherwise, you guys are hoarding rings. It's a violation of GS4-C, and basically that's a minor penalty per ring per 5 seconds, and that's absolutely horrible and will drive your score to 0. So please make sure you at least have a human player there to drop all the rings back on the field. As far as I'm aware, it's also kind of meant to be a little bit of a obstacle this year, and that's kind of how the field will be in a traditional situation as well. So please make sure you're doing that. Make sure your human player reads GS4. There's only about, I don't know, 10 items on there, but please make sure they read it. We did see some improvement between Meet 1 and Meet 2 from those who submitted videos, so that was good. Additionally, please keep an eye out for GS6, which is controlling too many rings or controlling too many wobble goals. make sure you guys are fairly penalizing yourselves for situations that were inadvertent, but were actually kind of consequential. So if you're controlling an extra ring for too long, make sure you're dinging yourselves appropriately there. So remember that's 1 minor penalty per 5 seconds of extra control per ring. So we have the assistant head referee here, by the way. So
Was the 16-foot rule question?
sure, I'm gonna finish my updates and then we'll get to the questions.
Sorry.
Okay. So the other thing is please make sure you're running a practice match and try to run it in the format closest to the format that you will be playing in. So if you're going to be running a live match, try to use the live scoring software as practice matches and make sure your team is familiar with that whole setup. Additionally, from the forum, there was one particularly important update. The forum has been rather slow on the remote side this season, but if you guys do have questions, please ask them there so that everyone gets to know what the response is, if I'm not able to answer them, or if you kind of think everyone should know about it. So the robot, the one important update was the robot should not be intentionally moving to stop a rolling ring that's been returned to the field. It's going to be considered blocking or a violation of GS6-1A. So if your robot is parked to launch rings and a ring happens to hit it and stop rolling, then that's not violating this rule. This one's really about the intent of the move. So it's about robots that are going kind of out of their way to intentionally stop a rolling ring while possessing more rings. So while possessing 3 or more rings. So please keep that in mind. It's kind of being treated as a strategic item, and it's also being treated as a potential violation of GS6-1A.
Kat, did you say that applies to remote?
Yes, it does.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. All right, those are my updates. I think we'll go ahead and get into the Q&A. I've seen some questions, including important questions like, can we get a referee jacket for the cat? I don't know. I'll see what I can whip up.
I have an extra shirt I can get you, Kat, if you want to cut it up so it fits your cat.
I have an extra shirt too. I'll see what I can come up with.
All right.
I don't know how well she'll like that.
I saw a few logistical questions kind of coming out first, and Jonathan and Greg took care of those in the chat, but I did want to reiterate their answers in case
yeah, sure.
they missed. So a few teams asked about like how our league's going to be, rather like the tournament delineation is going to be set up, and Jonathan and Greg both kind of said that would be toward the end of this month. So like last day January, early February is when those assignments would happen. We also had a question about where these drivers meetings and other meetings will be posted, and that will be on the FTC Illinois team updates page, which Jonathan said, I just dropped the link in the chat if you're not familiar with that page as well. And then we got into a few robot questions. So Kat, I will start you with the first one I saw, which was, does the 16-foot shooter limit apply to the ring traveling only through the air or once the ring has come to a stop after landing?
So the, what is that, RG6, I believe? I might be wrong on that. But the rule about how far a launch string can go, it's about the air travel time without any obstacles in the way. It's actually RG08, I apologize. But so it's a maximum of 5 feet tall and 16 feet of distance. So if it hits the floor and then bounces and kind of like skips, then it's no longer counting towards the 16 feet. Okay.
Thanks, Kat. Someone would like to know your cat's name.
Her name is Sheba. It's the shelter name. I fostered her for like over 6 months and I cannot change it now. Sorry.
Related to the 16-foot question, how would a team go about judging the 16-foot rule if they're in a 15-foot room?
So you can whip out your physics textbook and do some math and measure how high it hits on the wall. If it is, 14 or 15 feet away, and calculate a parabola and all of that fun stuff from your high school physics. That would be my best information for you, or you could take your robot outside and see what it does, in a larger space.
That was a great answer, Kat. Another team did ask, can we block rolling rings if their robot is in possession of 2 rings?
Yes, you can. And I can double check the exact wording on that post, but if you are in a traditional match and you are blocking another team from accessing them, we might fall into, I think, they renumbered all the rules this year, G28, which has to do with blocking game elements from your opponents. So the short answer there is for the remote matches, yes. For the traditional matches, you might have some defensive penalties involved.
And those are the only game questions and also the only logistic questions that I have seen roll in yet. Lots of fun discussion about how to solve the 16-foot problem in a 15-foot room, which is quite fun.
Yeah.
But if we do have any other questions, feel free to throw them in the chat. I know Kat might have a few things from the question box over the past month or so that might be relevant for everybody on this call.
Yeah, so I'm going to ask some commonly discussed topics or other items from the question box. So some topics that were frequently kind of touched on. The first one is, can you score points if you pick up the second wobble goal off the starting line and drop it into the drop zone? Or I think they meant to say target zone, or does the second wobble goal have to be moved past the shooting line in order to be scored in in-game? The second wobble goal just has to be outside the launch zone or in a target zone. So for example, target zone A, which is kind of half and half, in order to count for points in in-game. You can get points for both wobble goals in autonomous, and you can get points for both wobble goals in-game, but they have to start in the right position, which is outside the launch zone or in target zone A. All right. If a portion of the intake not related to launching rings extends outside the launch zone, is that safely considered inconsequential? My primary question for you is, is it so inconsequential that it doesn't matter if I cut it off? If the answer is you care about that intake, then it's part of your robot. That topic of having to be behind the launch line or behind the rear edge of the launch line has to do with the robot being behind that line, not the relevant parts of the robot for the launching. So it's not about the activity taking place behind the line, it's about the robot being behind the line. So all of your robot that you care about should be behind the line. If there's a stray piece of paper, tape, zip tie, something like that, that's over the line, then that's what we would consider inconsequential. And when we also talk about G9, which is inconsequential, well, inadvertent and inconsequential, we're looking for both those things. So if it's happening over and over and over again, we're going to see maybe that's not inadvertent, maybe that's your sweet spot. That's where you really want your robot to be to score those points. So that's where G9 doesn't really apply anymore, whether or not it is inconsequential or not. And then another question, can our robot be in the launch area, all four wheels with the arm extended into the non-launch zone, holding the wobble goal before in-game starts for the wobble goal to score in the in-game? So the goal itself is outside the launch zone, but the robot is in the launch zone. For this, I have a diagram. And sorry, I've gone a little bit more budget this week, but hopefully you guys will be able to see this. So, by the way, not to scale. So disregard the height of everything here. But if we say this is my robot, and I've tried to make him a little bit of a fun robot. So if this robot is here when the in-game begins, the wobble goal that they possess is not in an eligible position to be scored in game. Likewise, this wobble goal over here is not in an eligible position to be scored in game. So we do want the wobble goals to be not in the launch zone or in target zone A in order to be considered for those in-game drop zone or start line points, which we'll also put that like that. That's a fair score. That's a scoring wobble goal for in-game points. But what we can do with this guy right here is that would be a position where this is a legal launching position where the wobble goal is on the line, but the robot is completely behind the line. This is a position where are we at? This is a position where the wobble goal is an illegal configuration for in-game points, and the robot does not matter. So the robot is allowed to be in the launch zone. We just care about that wobble goal. The robot can be holding the wobble goal. It can be in control of it. So,
that was delightful, Kat. Okay. Your diagram, I was not expecting to see a mock-up of a field from Lego. So this is related, so your diagram might be useful. Okay. So you asked, so wobble goal needs to be either, of course, not in the launch zone or in a target zone prior to endgame to be eligible for endgame scoring. Does zone A apply if zone A was not the target zone during decided at the beginning of the match?
Yeah, as soon as autonomous is over and you guys are starting to play the driver controlled period, we don't care about the location of those wobble goals. So for example, if your wobble goals were in target zone B and that was your goal determined randomly in autonomous, was to get those wobble goals there, and then you've gone and navigated, and then the driver controlled period of the match is starting. You could do something like you could one at a time move these over here if that was something that really benefited you as far as getting rings. So you can move those around after the driver controlled period has begun. And then the important thing at that point is that they just don't travel too far so that they go out of target zone A.
Thanks, Kat. Next question I saw, someone in the chat did ask for a repeat. If you could narrow down what the repeat you would like would be, I'd be happy to rephrase the question. I saw a question, if a ring hits a power shot and the ring bounces off, hits another power shot, knocking that power shot down as well, is that considered a penalty if the ring didn't hit the crossbar?
So as long as the ring is making contact with the power shot, and that's what's changing the position of that power shot, then it is a legal score. We did have one team that did legally score that way in a match in Meet 2, and they submitted video evidence, and it does appear to be totally legal and fair. But I'd recommend that's not your general plan of attack, and that's just something that, kind of blissfully happens on occasion. So yes, as long as what scored it is the ring, one ring can hit 2 power shots, or power shot targets.
And the request to repeat was about the situation where your robot is in contact with the wobble goal, where the wobble goal is not in the launch zone at the beginning of endgame. And I believe what you were saying is, that's cool, that wobble goal is not in the launch zone.
Robot broke.
Even though it's in contact with that robot.
Yeah, so this is a legal way for our robot to be at the very start of in-game. So the robot's not completely in the launch zone. It could be completely in the launch zone or completely outside the launch zone. And it can be controlling and possessing that wobble goal. That's totally fine. It can be picked up. It can be, being pushed, being plowed. That's a totally fine way. So if your team is kind of wanting to, have like 32, 31, you hear the buzzer, make sure you hear the buzzer, and then, woo, and try and score. That's fine. But please make sure you wait for in-game to start. The robot could be in motion as well with the wobble goal. I don't have a ton of room here, but as long as it does not cross over the rearmost edge of the launch line prior to in-game start. And that's in any capacity, so even just that outside edge. So.
Thanks, Kat. This is similar, but it is a different location for the wobble goal at the start of endgame. So I'll read it word for word, and then if you'd like me to clarify, I think I know what they're going for. So the question is, if you are unable to move the wobble goal to the correct target zone, but instead just move the wobble goal off the start line, either in autonomous or driver control, can you still get points for putting the wobble goal back onto the start line during endgame?
Yes, but I'm going to put a caveat on that. So in autonomous, your robot could drop it just, here, just something, not your arm, dude. The robot could just drop the wobble goal over the line, or maybe you were trying for target zone C and you just miss. So once you've moved it off the start line, it has to get over the launch line. And then once you're over the launch line, those are eligible for points. If you just moved it off the start line and it doesn't make it all the way over, this is not eligible for those start line points in the end game.
Perfect, Kat. I think that's exactly what we meant, but if we can clarify, let me know. When we shoot a ring, if it goes in the goal but bounces out, does that count? That's the first question, and I'll do the follow-up.
No, it does not. If we read, where did all my links go? If we read in the autonomous period section, so Game Manual Part 2, 4.5.2, item number 3 about how to get your points, and I think there's a similar section as well in the driver control period. It says tower goal, each ring that enters the goal, they list all the goals, earns points, tells you how to remove stuck rings, and then I think the third sentence says rings are scored live and are recorded as scored the moment the rings are completely in the tower goal and are not in contact with the robot or human player and do not exit back out through the front of the goal. So that's the key part of it. They cannot exit back out the front of the goal. So no rebounds.
Perfect, thanks, Kat. And then also a scoring question. If their ring hits the power shot target but does not knock it the other way, does that count?
No, so I'm also going to read again from 4.5.2. Item number 4, power shot. Power shot target that is changed from forward to back by direct contact with a launched ring earns points for the team. So we do need the power shot targets to move from a forward position to the back position. It was also clarified in a national gameplay call with the world head referee, Mark Edelman, that if it gets stuck in between, it hasn't completed that motion, and it does need to go all the way back. You cannot, where's my lighting? So yeah, it has to go all the way back. If it gets stuck in the middle, it doesn't count for those power shot target points. So it's about changing the position through the means of the ring.
Thanks, Kat. I think Jonathan's answer in the chat was to this. When you talk about the forums, right, and like the Q&A forum, you mean ftcforums.firstinspires.org?
Yes, that's correct. I think there might be an S missing from that link, but if you Google FTC forums, it will take you there.
Yeah, the link Jonathan just dropped is the way to get there.
Awesome, thank you.
Cool, cool. Thanks, Jonathan.
And also in those forums, make sure you guys are going to, I think there's a more specific one, but make sure you guys are looking in game rules, and then additionally in game rules in the remote section. They are posting if they apply to both remote and traditional in both those sections, but some of the traditional rules do not apply to remote gameplay. So make sure you're looking in the remote section. And also be aware there's a ton of other useful forums in there, including about judging, advancement, field setup, robot build. So if you have questions about legal parts, any of those things, please check out the forums and see what previous rulings are, as well as get your questions answered.
Perfect. So if the wobble goal is put in box A during autonomous, is it considered over the line for points in end game because that line runs through box A?
Right. So I'm going to point you to the text so you guys can read the text. 4.5.4, item number 1. So this is the in-game section of Game Manual Part 2, Wobble Goal Delivery. The text says, at the start of in-game, wobble goals in a target zone or not located in the launch zone are eligible for the following achievements. So what it's saying is that if your wobble goal is in the target zone, A, if it's in target zone B, or if it's in target zone C, then it's eligible for points, or if it's behind the launch line. So I've rephrased that as primarily being behind the launch line, just because these two target zones are completely behind the launch line. So if they're in here, they're definitely behind the launch line. And then I'm saying also if it's in target zone A. So if it's in a position like this, then yes, it is eligible for those in-game points. So the target zone that is split by the launch line, as long as it is in that target zone, it is good for in-game points.
Thank you, Kat. I've got some good power shot assembly questions. I know that's been a very fun thing this season. First question is, does anyone have problems with their power shot sticking? I don't know, that might have been kind of a for the room question, Kat. I don't know if you've heard of that or any solutions to that. They're saying their power shot targets don't get hit back even when launched at directly.
The solution that I've heard, which is going to be frustrating, is to disassemble it and reassemble it and maybe add some WD-40. So check that your assembly was correctly done. Maybe add spacers, maybe make sure you're not over tightening it. You know, kind of do those checks to make sure that you have it completely assembled. We are open if somebody does want to comment on that, either in the chat or they can put their hand up and provide any individual team feedback.
I don't know if anybody else has a good solution. If you do, if you have found a solution to that, please let us know. Almost the opposite question, Kat. Is there a way to kind of set up the power shot assembly to stop the power shots from flipping back when another is scored? It seems that when a power shot is scored, it flips the other one. I'm gonna read this word for word. It seems that when an end power shot is scored, it flips the one on the other end back to unscored. So it sounds like after scoring one power shot target, sometimes launching at another one causes them to flip-flop.
Sure. And Corey, if you can put the link to the remote field requirements in the chat. So in the remote field requirements, they added Appendix B, I think in late November, early December. So please check that out. They're recommending that you help stabilize your structure by adding a chair or a weighted box or something similar to help stiffen up the PowerShot target structure on the remote fields. And then the other item that I have to throw at you is you might be violating RG08 if the rings are hitting so hard that it's causing other PowerShot targets to flip and rebound. And we do care about that final state of them. So please make sure that your robot is not launching the rings over 5 feet tall or over 16 feet in distance. That's something that is an indicator of potentially high force launches. So please double check and make sure you're not launching rings too hard.
This is another Wobble goal during endgame question. Does Zone A always count as past the launch line, or only if it was selected during randomization?
Always. It's not written as if you got randomly A, it counts. It's always. So if you move one of your Wobble goals to the correct one during autonomous, and then later during driver control, you just put this over into target zone A, then you are in an okay position to score both of these in in-game.
Thanks, Kat. I know that was a tricky one for me. I learned that. I did not know that today, so thank you very much.
Yay.
Yay. If a ring is shot to a PowerShot and instead of knocking it down, it hangs on the PowerShot target, does that earn points?
No, we care about the PowerShot target getting flipped to the backwards position via a ring. If the ring gets stuck, it's kind of a too bad situation. If that happens in autonomous, once driver control starts, the human player can remove the ring and keep it in play, but you do not get points unless the PowerShot target moves to the backwards position.
Another team asked, going back to the PowerShot assembly, is it legal to apply a small strip of foam to prevent the PowerShots from bouncing back after being hit?
No, that's changing your field. Unless there's a recommendation that comes out that allows that to happen, which I don't believe it will, no. And again, try to make sure you're not launching rings too hard and that your assembly is built correctly and stabilized as much as possible.
Cool. We are, as far as I can tell, at the end of the questions I've seen in the chat. It looks like we did have someone say for the PowerShots getting stuck, try seeing if their reset bar is pushed down, or try lifting and setting down the reset bar, and that might be part of the reason the assembly is sticking. So that was a suggestion from someone in the chat that might be helpful if your PowerShots are sticky. If you have any other questions, I would love to write them down and pass them on. I'm not sure if you had any other interesting things come up in the past month or so, Kat, that you could pass on as well.
What else was interesting?
If anybody had dungeon questions, I can try to answer them.
Or questions about leagues, the tournaments coming up, any of those items.
Right, anything.
Kat, I think you could already answer this question, so correct me. I'll just try to answer it quickly. A team did ask, if a robot shoots a ring that goes into a goal but bounces out, does it count? And I believe you told us the answer was no, it has to remain inside.
Yes, that's correct. Please make sure you read 4.5.2, item number 3, where it says do not, the rings cannot exit back out through the front of the goal in order to count for points. So, yeah.
Perfect. Thanks for all your questions, team. That's really good questions.
I highly suspect that the Lego diagram was very helpful in inspiring some questions.
I found it remarkably helpful. I mean, a few years ago, you brought like Amazon boxes to be robots for your like referee meeting, and I thought that was the coolest field mock-up I had seen. This was very, very cool. You should submit it to ideas, mock it up, and
Yeah, I can do that.
I'd like to point out that I believe it was to scale,
it was pretty close. It was
like two studs per.
Yeah, it's on the no, it's off from that. The issue though is that the my tape is too wide. My tape, that's what's out of scale, and then the height is a little bit tricky because the people are really short. They're not really to scale, so at least the scale I chose for the two-dimensional aspect.
Two logistical questions. So one team is asking how many teams advance to Worlds from the state level? And Jonathan in the chat just said, we do not know at this point. Thank you, Jonathan. Someone else asked, how long is each judging session, and does everyone on the team have to present?
The judging session is 5 minutes of uninterrupted presentation, 10 minutes of questioning. Everybody should have something to present at a judge meeting.
And additionally, there will be an afternoon session that will
Yes,
be
right.
a little less structured, and some teams may get visited for a while by multiple sets of judges. So there will be a second session that's longer and a little less structured.
Most important part is the first meeting in the morning.
Yes.
So the 90-minute pit judging from Liam is sort of a rolling 90 minutes. You should be available for all 90, but you're only going to have a 10 or 15 minute interaction. We're trying to give the judges flexibility to spend as much time as possible.
I will go ahead and tackle the Got Robot question of, I want to know if the Lego robot is Mechanim. No, it's like the size of my thumb. No, sorry. Working with what I got here.
Good question in there.
Yeah.
A team asked what counts as possessing a ring. So they're specifically referencing a situation where they are possibly pushing 4 rings or holding 3 while on top of a 4th ring. They're asking kind of where is that line for possession?
Right. So if you read all of GS6, and if you also go back to the definition section, which I think is 4.4, where they kind of define everything, there's actually a substantial, like half-page long section there called control and controlling. They do say carrying, herding, holding, launching, are controlling. And in addition to that, there's another section that I think mentions possession, and an object is in possession by a robot if, as the robot moves or changes orientation, the object remains approximately in the same position relative to the robot. Objects in possession are considered to be controlled as they are part of the robot. So we have seen instances of a ring getting stuck like under a drivetrain, and then it follows the robot around everywhere. So that is possession because it's following the robot around. So that is counting towards your total. So if there were 3 being handled as your robot was designed to handle rings, and then additionally another one stuck under the drivetrain that is following the robot around, that's 4 rings in possession of the robot. So that's, I think, the best way I can describe that. Additionally, if the robot is holding 3 rings in the way it was designed, so in its intake or in the launch mechanism, wherever you want your rings to be held and controlled by the robot, if it additionally then pushes another ring, then that is also controlling. However, we get into the discussion of plowing versus herding. Herding is a possession thing. Plowing is not. Plowing, they talk about inadvertent contact while moving about the playing field, and that's not considered to be a possession. But when we talk about that, a lot of times I think some teams are like, well, I don't really want that ring, so it's not being controlled by me. But you have to look if it's following the robot around. So if you're moving a tile length in a direction, for example, from the rear of the field to the launch zone, and that ring follows your robot for a tile length, and we're not supposed to give specific dimensions, but I'm giving you an example here, I'd say you're probably actually herding that ring instead of plowing it. Plowing it would be something where as you drive, you glance off of it, you deflect, and it stops moving with the robot pretty quickly. So that's some examples. Rings stuck on the robot, so if a ring falls on the robot and gets stuck, it does count towards your total, even if you, again, don't mean for it to be there. When we get into traditional matches, that's a situation where you're potentially keeping your teammate and the other alliance from controlling that ring, so it's taken that ring out of play. So that's why we talk about these still being important, even if you're the only team there. Hopefully practicing for the future eventual scenario of playing these matches with other teams. So any other questions about controlling, herding, plowing, possessing? Also, if you jumped out of GS6, it is the wording is controlling or possessing. So either of those situations, so for example, a ring stuck under a drivetrain is a possession, and so that is counting towards your total. And there's a lovely orange box under that rule that says rings may become possessed inadvertently and they still earn a penalty because it's not inconsequential. Teams should design their robots to minimize the possibility of accidentally possessing a stray ring. So that's the helpful reminder from the GDC. All right.
I actually might have, I do not remember, but I put an X next to it in my list, but I think I might not have said it. I think I was like about to say it. Someone did ask if rings are shot out. Oh, sorry, just kidding. Never mind, I got to it, just kidding.
Okay, I think we got that one.
We did.
All right, I think there's some fun Lego related questions. I can take a picture of this and send it and have you guys count nubs. I don't know if I'm gonna like spend the time to like cat it out or anything. So I tried to do my best with the size board I had and also with how many Legos are in my possession, and I just referenced the current field setup guides. People want their robot to look like the Lego model. Are actual robots allowed to be made out of Legos? I don't think they're disallowed. I do think you have to use real motors. You can't use Mindstorms. But I want you to consider that well to make sure that you build a robot that is robust and can handle robot-on-robot interaction. And don't use the crackle. Craggle? All right, I think we're definitely on the tail end of the question box questions, unless anybody has something worthwhile, we can still totally take that. Otherwise, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap up. Again, we have 4 meets. Make sure you're aware there are 4 meets this season. And I have dates. So meet 3 begins on January 18th and goes through the 24th. And then we will have another drivers meeting prior to the remote meet 4, which is running February 8th to the 14th. We will have a date and link posted shortly. Again, it'll be the Thursday before the meet week. So, and again, Corey and Greg have posted some really great links in the chat. So take a look at those. I don't know. Maybe the quality is not what I think it is. And then we will have this recording as well as helpful links and other information posted to the team updates page on the firstillinoisrobotics.org website, which hopefully you guys are frequently referencing. We will have that hopefully by tomorrow, but definitely by Saturday. So that all depends on how nice my internet is to me. So I think that's going to call it for this evening. So thank you guys all for participating, and we look forward to seeing what you do in Meet 3.
Thanks, Kat.
Bye all.
Thank you.